You are listening to Amplify Your Success Podcast, episode 109. And today, get ready, fasten your seatbelts. I've got a guest joining me to talk about how to use the Enneagram tool for spiritual liberation and massive business success, especially if you're a leader. So let's get started.
Welcome to the Amplify Your Success Podcast. Hey, are you a thought leader, creative entrepreneur, or change maker and want to magnify your impact? Boost influence while creating a financial abundance? Stay tuned for today's inspiring episode with your host, Melanie Benson.
Hello there and welcome, inspired entrepreneurs and business leaders. It's your host, Melanie Benson here. And boy, have we got a really interesting, wisdom-packed show today. I can't wait to introduce you to my guest. He's someone who I've been trying to get on the show for quite some time, and he's so busy, so jam-packed. He's doing so much of this great work on the planet that he was really tough to get here. So I'll introduce him in a minute. But first, let me just remind you about how powerful it is when you have a tool in your toolbox that opens up instant revenue into your business. I'm talking about my free tool, Your Revenue Rush, how to get fast cash into your business now. And you can get that at yourrevenuerush.com. Now, this tool is designed for service professionals, entrepreneurs, online business owners, people who oftentimes are susceptible to a big client leaving or a product launch that doesn't go the way you hope, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a cash crunch. So don't stay there. Don't let it stress you out. Have a tool in your toolkit to pop open, find one of the top 10 ways to get money flowing into your business now, plus a couple bonus tips to show you how to keep consistent revenue coming into your business. Grab it now at yourrevenuerush.com. Now, let's get into today's episode. Well, today's episode is one I have been waiting for quite some time. I have finally got him on the show. We're talking today about using the Enneagram for spiritual liberation and business success. So I'm going to introduce you to my friend Ben Saltzman. Now, Ben is an internationally known Enneagram expert and has been fascinated by why humans do what we do for decades. In the Enneagram, he found not only a beautiful map of our inner psychology, but also a profound system for spiritual transformation. He has used the system with Fortune 500 executives, politicians, superior court judges, nonprofits, and multimillionaire entrepreneurs who are greening the planet, supporting them in deepening of self-awareness, shedding of old beliefs, and the embodiment of power, presence, compassion, and joy. He's coached his clients to meet with and create successful relationships with some of the most powerful people on the planet, including Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, and royalty in other countries. He's used his understanding of the Enneagram with his wife and 6-year-old daughter regularly to bring more harmony, understanding, and love into their relationships. And this was really cool. I just learned this about you, Ben, is that you co-founded the Israeli Enneagram Center in Tel Aviv, Israel, and travels regularly to teach the master level classes there. And is also taught at John F. Kennedy University and the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology. And here's the really cool part. He's the author of the online program, Transform Your Type, and teaches coaches and therapists to use the Enneagram in his 5-day programs and year-long intensives. But most importantly, he's just a super cool, awesome dude who's really wise. As a matter of fact, I remember our first meeting, I got the full picture of Ben super quick when you're like, yeah, like kind of getting the vibe we're supposed to meet. I'm like, yes, I love it.
That's right. It was destiny. It was just calling us together.
That's right. Thanks so much for joining me on the podcast. As you know, I've been dying to have this conversation with you because we've had so many rich, juicy, powerful conversations about this tool, and I've been wanting to share it with my community.
Yeah, thank you. I love sharing this. I always feel like I've got this little secret pot of gold that I get to share with different communities as people open the doors. So thank you for opening the door so I can share this with your people.
Yeah, you got it. Well, let's get everybody up to speed on what the Enneagram is and how you're using it to help your clients.
So the Enneagram is, at the surface level, a map of 9 different personality types. and what are the hidden belief structures and the hidden fears and kind of why we do what we do that we're unaware of. And why do we keep on shooting ourselves in the foot? Sometimes in relationships, there's very specific fears that we have that kind of sabotage our relationships and our intimacy. And in the business world, there's always some hidden beliefs, some reasoning why that sabotages us and gives us a ceiling on how much impact or income or influence we have with other people. And we really don't know. I mean, if we knew, we would have done it differently already, right? So here's this map of why we do what we do. That's the psychological perspective. From the spiritual perspective, the Enneagram is a ridiculously precise map of what we are not. The idea here is that there is a more authentic you, that your type is just the defense mechanism, that there's a you inside that's more graceful, more easeful, more powerful, more centered, more focused, more loving, more present than your type. And that as you do your inner emotional and spiritual work, you get less and less constrained and restrained by type. You get more and more free to have that inner you, that authentic expression come through. And that's a beautiful transformation. I just love, I spend most of my time supporting people going through that transformation from wrapped up in type to free from type and more available for whatever it is that meets the moment, that meets your life as it shows up. So you're not just reacting from inside the type.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because if someone's not familiar with this work, they may not know what that means to be wrapped up in their type. Like, what are some of the signs that someone's wrapped up in their type and it's actually maybe running them in a direction that's not serving their greater success in life?
Well, the first one is they don't know their type. If you don't know your type and you're not really aware of these hidden motivations and reactivity, it's probably running you. There's very little that we can get free from if we don't know that it's there. So our type is almost invisible to us when we start the self-study. It's like the air that we breathe. It's like a fish in water. Like you are just doing your type all the time until you become aware of it and start to see it and get some distance from it and engage your self-observer. You're kind of at the mercy of this type that's got you and you don't know it. And that's a problem. It costs us a lot in terms of relationship and impact and income.
Yeah, I would have to say in my own journey with Enneagram, by the way, I was introduced to it very early on in my coaching career. I'd probably say in the first couple years, but it was confusing to me. Like, I couldn't figure out what it meant or how it worked. And, it's got a little bit of this diagram going on. And I'm like, whoa, okay, way too much. And so I never really went any deeper. But then I was introduced to it again about 3, maybe 4 years ago, and it blew my mind. And I have to say that one of the signs for me that I wanted to go further with this is I was in conflict with people that didn't make sense. Like, there was stress and tension and conflict and kind of a lack of compassion and maybe even like judgments coming up from all the parties. And I thought, wow, this is a really interesting like dynamic. Like, we all want the same things in life, but yet our approach to getting there feels so out of sync.
Yeah. Sometimes it feels like the 9 different types live in 9 different worlds and speak 9 different languages. And how the heck are we going to translate? How the heck are we going to step into another person's world and be able to speak in a language that lands for them? Part of one of the gifts of the Enneagram is you learn about the type of your mother, your father, your coworkers, your clients, your potential clients. And when you get their worldview and what their fears are, first, you can avoid those fears and the reactivity, so you're not tweaking people. And secondly, you learn how do you use the words so that they feel like, oh, you get me, you understand, you care about how you're impacting me and what I care about. It's like you just get people on the inside. We have coaches that use this and they say, oh my God, all my resistant clients, once I start speaking into their type and how they see the world, they're no longer resistant. All of a sudden they're open and available and, they get my pearls of wisdom. They're no longer kind of holding on to their version of the truth. And this is how the world is. And I've got to be like this. When we are deeply seen and felt and understood, we lose all of that tension and we become open to new possibility, to seeing the world in a new way, to opening to the pearls of wisdom from the coaches. So it's a real deep connecting tool if you come to understand the 9 types.
Yeah. So I'm an Enneagram 1.
Yeah.
And you are?
Enneagram 7.
Okay. And there's 9 altogether. I find that many of my clients are an Enneagram 3, Enneagram 4, or an Enneagram 7. I get a couple 2s in there. I don't know if we want to go through and like a quick overview of them, but I definitely want to talk about like what it's like to be a 1, what it's like to be a 7, because I'm sure, especially on the 7 side, I think we're going to have a lot of people relate to it.
Yeah. So here's my suggestion. I'll do the names in like a 1 sentence on each type.
Perfect. Love it.
And then we'll dig into your type and we'll do kind of before transformation and after transformation for your type. And then same thing for me. We'll do this type 1 and the 7 because there's a good contrast. The type 1 and type 7. Good contrast.
Okay, good.
Then we'll do my type before and after transformation. And then we can talk about, what do you do after you discover your type? Like, how do you actually get shift or transformation?
I love it.
Okay. So starting with type 1, perfectionist, right, wrong, I got to get it right. Each type has an underlying core belief that is total BS that the type is built on. And for the type 1, and that core belief is woven into the nervous system. For the type 1, that core belief is, I've got to get it right or I'm going to die. Like, I've got to get it perfect. So they are searching for perfection, and their attention is drawn towards what's imperfect, what's out of place, what's not correct. And we'll hear more from you about how that shows up in life. But that's type 1. Type 2 is the helper. They want to connect. This is the heart-based type. They want to please. That core belief is, if I don't make emotional connection and know how to help and support and please the other people in my life, I'm not going to earn my keep. I'm not going to earn love. I'm going to die. That's type 2. Type 3, the performer. Hard charging, get it done, look good doing it. A lot of focus on task and achievement and image. The core belief here is, if I don't get it done and look good doing it, I'm going to die. Type number 4, the romantic, or sometimes called the tragic romantic. We're still in the heart-based here, 2, 3, and 4 heart-based types. So type 4 is the core belief, I'm separated from, I'm unique, and I've lost something that is critical. And if I don't get that critical thing back, if I'm ostracized, I'm going to die. So there's a lot of longing for something that's missing, and a sense of there's something wrong with me, and how come they all have the thing that I don't have, and why am I on the outside looking in at these groups? So there's a lot. The 4s tend to be the most dramatic, the most emotional of the types. Now we move into the head. 5, 6, and 7 are head-based types. So type number 5, the observer, they're just kind of watching. They're removed. They're a little bit aloof. They're analytical because we're in the head here. The core belief for the 5, the total BS core belief, is there's not enough, and I've got to hold on to what I've got. And if I don't, I'm going to die. If I run out of time, resources, energy, whatever it is, there's this kind of hoarding of my energy and time and resources. And if I let people come in, they're going to take everything I have, and I'm going to die. And that's woven into the nervous system. Again, all this is unconscious for the most part. So it's hard at the beginning to know which of these you are because the motivations are so unconscious. 6, still in the head here. This is the skeptic or the loyal skeptic. And the 6s are kind of checking out what's going to go wrong. Who's the threat? Where's the danger? What's going to get me? Is this safe? Is that person safe? Is the authority people safe? There's an underlying nervousness and a tension inside the 6s. And the core belief here is, I live in a world filled with dangers and hazards. And if I'm not vigilant, if I don't keep my eyes open, they're going to get me and I'm going to die. And that's woven into the nervous system. So you can imagine how protective of myself and the people around me I am if I'm in a world filled with dangers. Sevens, type 7, still up in the head here. The visionary or the epicure. The 7s are like the fun-loving, let's go party and hang out, and they're the hedonists of the Enneagram. And the core belief that's woven into the nervous system for them is, if I am forced to experience pain and suffering, I'm going to die. So in response, they keep their options open, they move towards joy, they juggle a lot of balls, they're commitment phobic. We got to keep laughter and joy happening because I don't want to go into the pain and the sadness and the suffering. We'll hear more about that when we dig into my path.
Yes.
Lucky you all, you get the 7 dogs. Oy, oy, oy. All right, 8. So the 8s, these are the tough, the brawn, the big, the bad, the invincibles. The belief that's under there for the 8 is, if I'm weak and vulnerable, people will take advantage of me. They'll kill me and I'll die. Again, it's unconscious, woven into the nervous system, but it's there. And so that means that they don't show vulnerability. They lead with strength. They come out with power. They like to control their environment and control the people around them. There's just an intensity underneath the 8s. Now we've moved up into the body here with 8, 9, and 1 up at the top of the Enneagram. And the body types have underlying anger and resistance. The head types, 5, 6, and 7, underlying fear and anxiety. And the heart types, 2, 3, and 4, underlying sadness and shame. So that was 8. Now number 9, this is the last one here. And this is we call them the mediators. Again, it's a peacemaker. And they merge with everybody. They lose their own agenda, what they want, what they care about. And the underlying message for them, the core belief that's running the show is, if I go for my own thing, if I stand out, if I move forward with my agenda, I'm going to be separated from people and they're going to kill me and then I'll die. So rather than have my own agenda, my attention just goes out to everybody else's agenda. What do you want? What do you want? How can I help you? So there's a diffusion of their own energy and a movement into calm and ease.
Thank you for that description. I actually learned a couple new things hearing you describe each of those. So that's so insightful. So interestingly enough, I have a ton of 4s in my family. And I also have a lot of clients who are 7s.
Yeah.
So learning this Enneagram for me was life altering. And it's why I've been so excited to share it with the listeners here at Amplify Your Success, because to have this information radically transform my ability to have empathy, but also to dissolve tensions and breakdowns I was having with different types. And so let me just share really quick how I kind of got to Enneagram is, again, I mentioned it was introduced to me many, many years ago. As a matter of fact, I had a book on in my bookshelf for probably 16 years that I never opened until just a couple years ago.
Yep. And
I was in a mastermind with some very high-powered visionaries and industry leaders, and as a 1. When I facilitate masterminds, I facilitate this mastermind, I found myself really wanting to get it right, and in noticing very quickly as I was leading this group that I went from being excited and inspired to having this perpetual anxiety. Because what I learned was that the group was 60% 7s, about 30%, about 20%, something like that, were 3s, and then a smattering of the others. Myself being the only one in the group, and I had this deep need to get it right. And I felt if I didn't get it right, I was going to lose their love and approval.
Yeah.
But my version of getting it right, and it meant they needed to do the mastermind right. So you can imagine the sevens are very much reacting to my rules or guidelines of how, the group was going to flow. And
can you just give us like what's the most kind of limiting or precise rule? So we just get a feel for how
showing up to the calls.
Uh-huh.
Right. So, having an agreement about showing up to the calls and then following through on it. Or like another guideline that we had was that, we would have 2 retreats a year, but I kept running into nobody wanted to actually commit to any times.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is happening here? And so I felt the group was devolving, but what was actually happening was they were just expressing themselves the way they mostly express themselves.
Right.
And I found myself getting really frustrated and getting irritated towards the different group members because I couldn't understand why no one else wanted to do it in alignment with the rules, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
just so people know, this inside the type 7, remember we said we don't want to be limited.
yes.
So
or make commitments oftentimes.
Right. Yeah. So really precise rules, and you have to do it this way, and you got to show up for this, that, and like the 7s just rebel against that just out of hand. Mm-hmm. The activity, whether it's good for them or not. Yeah. If you're really trying to limit them in any way, they're just going to rebel. And the 3s are usually too busy to make those kind of commitments. So I could see how you'd be running uphill here.
Exactly. Yeah. So the funny thing is, like, once we were all together, like, very powerful things would happen. So, the facilitated masterminds are very powerful to get massive breakthroughs, no matter what level of success. But there was all this, noise around getting into the space together.
Yeah.
And then, on a personal side, like, I was really, my entire life ruled by needing to get it right. And not understanding that that I had embedded this need for approval, from others in my version of getting it right.
Do you have any examples of how that would show up in relationship, of how you're trying to get it right? Because it could be business relationship or personal, but usually there's some version of I got to get it right that costs in relationship.
Well, there's probably 20 versions of that, but even in like my former career in the corporate world, I found myself not understanding how to perform at the expected level if it wasn't spelled out what the right way to do it was. Like, I had a very difficult time using my intuition or kind of like letting my own thought processes be enough to validate it was okay, right? Like, so I needed to get it perfect. And so that meant I needed rules instead of like, well, just think about what needs to happen and make a suggestion. Like, I had to learn that behavior.
Yeah.
And so it was very painful for me early in my corporate career because I was in more of a creative entrepreneurial role there that was being formed. There were no rules. So I felt like I didn't know how to swim the right direction with all the other fish because I didn't have that skill yet. So that's one example.
And that can be really hard because the ones can't take action without some guidelines and rules often in those situations. And so everything backs up and nothing moves forward. There's no accomplishment.
Yeah. And then as an entrepreneur, what I found was that it was very, like, I had this wiring of how do I break through needing to get it right before I'm willing to take action?
Yeah.
And then finding myself in fear that if I get it wrong, something bad will happen. And I love your explanation that, like, you feel like you might die. Like, I literally would have that level of anxiety of like, if I don't get this right, something bad's going to happen. Like, the business might die, or I might, get, in this place where I can't ever get out of it. And so, there was a lot of like scripting in my mindset of I have to get this at a certain level of rightness or else something bad's going to happen. Like, people will stop wanting to work with me, or, I'll lose the respect of others.
Exactly. And so, websites never go out, marketing plans get pushed back months because they're trying to get it perfect. They just, the ones have trouble reaching out and taking action and releasing things that are good enough because they're trying to get it perfect. And usually that's tens of thousands of dollars that it costs them.
And here's the other really big one. Because I use a team, I was embedding my need to get it right into them. So if they didn't get it right enough, I'd be like, well, obviously they're not the right person on my team. So I would have this tension, like they have to get it right, or it's a reflection on me. And if they can't get it right, then, I would either try to work on the relationship to get it more right, or I would have to release them. And so there was a lot of that dynamic with team members who are other styles that really played out for me.
A lot of tension, I'm guessing, between you and them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's pre-transformation, right? A lot of trouble in the mastermind group, trouble as an entrepreneur. You catch on to your type 1, you start to see it, you do the inner transformations. So now give us the after, like what is it like post the self-awareness and transformation?
Well, I think the biggest piece was instead of like immediately snapping into the judgment of like, it's not getting done right and something bad's going to happen, or frustrated with someone else's, my story that they're not doing it right and this is a bad thing. I was like, oh, well, obviously they're wired differently than me. And this is my thing that I need to get it right. So how do I take a step back and approach this differently? Like it created so much awareness and so much empathy.
Nice.
Little known fact, my sister's one of the 4s in my life. And so even just understanding her journey and what it must be like to have, the 4 stuff playing out in her life, I had so much empathy and compassion that I never had before.
Yeah.
And so it kind of softened some of the edges that we'd always had between, of course, a 1 who's highly driven and really capable and like, just do things, know, with a 4 who is like, like feeling so ostracized from the world. And a lot of times I'm like, oh, wow. Like, okay. It all of a sudden just brought this deep bond of mutual respect. And I actually went and had everyone in my family do the Enneagram after I started learning about it. And we all started to get those insights. It was really powerful.
So it sounds like more compassion for her. I'm imagining you two got closer, like more connection.
Yeah. And I was able to navigate a lot of conversations very differently, even with clients, like my clients that are 7s or 4s or 3s or whatever they are. I learned to, like you were mentioning earlier, like to use different language and to frame things more in the language that they needed to hear instead of language that would maybe come naturally for me, and have an appreciation when I would get frustrated before and think, oh my God, they're just out of control. This is going all the wrong directions. Like what's happening? I'm like, oh, okay. So they're operating in their style right now. And how can I bridge that gap and meet them there? So it became a better tool to be a better coach, really.
Nice. And what happened with that group, with the mastermind group?
It's still going. Yeah, we're like 5 years now, I think. And instead of being so tied to, it has to go a certain way, I've just kind of let go and let evolve what needs to evolve for the group to continue to like grow together. So it's like when I stopped needing it to be right, I loosened the reins and now everybody's happy. It's just like, I just changed my story of what it had to be.
Nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, it was very powerful.
Yeah.
And a very big, it was a growth opportunity for me as a leader.
Yeah. Yeah. Just, the surrender from the rules have to be followed to, okay, I'm just going to pay attention to what wants to happen here and allow the kind of chaos to ensue that sometimes happens when we let go of the reins. That is such a big shift for type 1.
Yeah.
It's enormous.
Totally. Very, very, very good as a leadership skill. Definitely.
Nice.
So tell me about the 7, because this is one of the most interesting contrasts of the Enneagrams.
So in contrast with the 1, remember the 1s are trying to get it right and some, rigidity. The 7s are like, let's just play. Let's let it hang on out. Let's just go, the more chaos, the better at some level inside the 7, because that means less constraints and restraints. And it means that I don't have to feel the pain or the suffering that would become my death. Now, again, that's usually really unconscious. All the 7s are aware of is, dang, those people who are kind of lost in their own sadness and sorrow, a lot of type 4s, kind of just tweak me out, and I don't want to be around them, and I don't have a lot of compassion for them. And I'm just like, why would you want to go into sadness? Go have fun, go enjoy yourself. Let's party. And so my own journey with this, I'm before the .com bust, I started coaching, had some clients, started doing seminars, and I really like the deeper level work. So I'm doing seminars, but I'm only getting 5 or 6 people to show up to the seminars. And I find out later that they're experiencing me as kind of light and flighty and not really grounded and kind of bouncing all over the place. The 7s of all the types are the ones the most likely to have 4 different careers and within a couple of years, and 8 different jobs within 2 years, and 4 different girlfriends within 3 years. There's just like an ongoing bouncing and trouble settling. And I was wrapped in all of that. So very, trouble around commitment in relationship, and also trouble around commitment and kind of holding more ground or gravitas in terms of professional relationships. So discovered I was a 7, started to get, that's why people experience me that way. It's the 7 stuff is getting in my way, and started to do the inner work around that, and learned how to drop into the body, because the 7s are head type. So kind of found the heart in the body. And that was wild and revolutionary. Oh, I have a body. Oh, I have feelings. Oh, there's something down there underneath my head. Huh, who knew? And then people started experiencing me as more grounded, and I committed to a relationship, and I got married, and I had a child, and that grounded me more. And in the professional arena, I committed to a specific marketing strategy, a specific, to work only with entrepreneurs and not so much everything for everybody. And started training coaches and therapists after I found the power of the Enneagram. Started training coaches and therapists in how to use the Enneagram with their clients. And my seminars grew 10 to 20 to 30 to 100 people in the events. So my income started to go up dramatically as more and more people would come to me and say, Ben, I trust you more. You have ground. You've got your seat under you. And they're willing to go into deeper places because I could hold my own pain or my own sadness or my own, like being present with joy. You've got to have some ground underneath you to do deeper level transformational work with people. And for me to hear them say, you've got your ground, I'll trust you, I'll go anywhere with you. I was just like, thank God. I'm not doomed to just run my type. Like the evolution is possible. So that was huge. It impacted every aspect of my life as I went through the transformational journey. And the side effect was I was getting more and more one-on-one coaching clients who had more and more impact and influence. So now a lot of my clients, they're raising like $40 million, $100 million to start a company that serves the greening of the planet, and start high-tech companies that serve the greening of the planet. And guess what? The thing that's getting in their way of raising that kind of money or of leading the team is 90% of the time, the type is wrapped up in there. And as we do the work around their type, they drop in, they create more connection with people. And instead of getting rejected when they're trying to raise the money, they actually can raise the money and go make their thing happen and to support the planet. So I didn't try to move into that particular niche and kind of move up the food chain, but it happened, and I'm really pleased and blessed that my journey took me there.
Yeah, it's really powerful to watch what can happen when you give people tools so that they can use their strengths and really like build bridges instead of walls.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I love the Enneagram for that. And we could talk about so many pieces of the Enneagram, but I think one thing I want to make sure, as people are starting to go, well, what type am I? I know I'm not a 1, or I don't know, I think I'm a 7. How do they find out what their type is?
Yeah. So we've got an online assessment to help you figure out your type. It's free. It only takes 5 minutes. And you just answer some questions about yourself, and we'll send you the results. And you go to touchedandtransformed.com/test to get that.
Okay.
And there are probably people who know their type, and they're looking at the deeper level work. And we've got a handout for you too. And you'll do show notes or something here?
Yeah, we'll put it on the show notes because it's a very long URL that you will not be able to write down fast enough.
Okay. So for that one, it's critical transformations by type. So for each of the types, what are we letting go of, and what is that type stepping into as part of their development? What is the critical transformation for each of the types? And that's a real nice summary of the transformations that people like.
Yeah, I love it. And so if you go to amplifyyoursuccesspodcast.com and you head over to the little search bar, you can type in the episode name or the episode number, and you'll be able to go get those links off the show notes. And I have to say, finding out your Enneagram type is very illuminating. Again, it's very interesting. You may find that you want to share it with your friends, or maybe you have some family members that you feel like you're at odds. Send them the link. Everybody go get your test and figure it out. And it really opens up some interesting conversations. And one last question I want to ask you, Ben.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, and this comes up every time I bring things like this to people, is, well, what if I feel like I'm more than one type?
That's pretty common. So the Enneagram, this is a deep system. I mean, we use it for transformation. So we combine it with shadow work, we combine it with self-observation, transformational processes. So the Enneagram in itself is designed as a system for transformation and change with a lot of layers of subtlety. So one of the things you'll discover as you start getting into the system is that you've got a wing, which is on either side of your type. So, I'm a 7, so I might have a 6 wing on one side or an 8 wing on the other side, because those are the ones right beside me, 6, 7, and 8. So that influences your type, and you move around that symbol. So if you find the symbol, you can move around these lines. If you're in your heart and feeling really good, or if you're really stressed, you'll move to other types. So it's not uncommon that at the beginning, we're not sure exactly what type we are. And what I can tell you is you are one. You're one of these. One of these is at your core. And it's the one that when you're pricked, you go back to over and over and over again. It's the one that is so unconsciously running the show that you don't know that you're that. And sometimes we have people watch panels. So the way that we teach is we have 4 or 5 people in front of the room that are all the same type, and we do live work with them and take them down into their defense mechanisms and the spaces and places where their fears are, their hearts are. We do live transformational work. And if you watch a panel of all type 7s in front of the room, you're a type 7, you're going to get activated. Your stuff is going to get kicked up. I mean, everybody kind of becomes a 7, but you'll have an extra layer of, oh my God, that's me. Holy moly, that's why I do that. And that's why I keep getting that result. So I really encourage you to watch panels if you're just going to start taking this seriously, to discover your own type and to learn about all the people in your life. When you see an actual panel of people, live humans, it takes it out of theory and into the real world. And that people, we've been doing this for 20 years. That's where people really start to get their deepest insights, is when they're starting to sit on panels or watch panels or engage in that way.
And those are panels that you do at your live event, right? Yeah,
we do them at our live event, and they are in our our virtual coach training. So when you sign up for either one of those freebies that we talked about earlier, you'll get some videos, and we'll be introducing you to our live coaching, our coach training, our virtual coach training, and our live coach training. And there's panels in both of those. We recorded a set of panels for the virtual one, and our live one we do once a year, and people can come and play at that.
Thank you so much for being here today. I think this tool is so powerful. I think it's invaluable information. I'm a huge fan of like figuring out what do I need to learn so I can continue to evolve and grow, not just as a leader, but as a human being, and in having better relationships.
Yeah.
And I think the Enneagram is such a great resource for that. So I hope as you're listening in, you'll go get your Enneagram test at touchedandtransformed.com/test. And again, you can head over to the show page to get all of these links and tap into the resources and, learn more about the Enneagram and how it can inspire greatness in you. Thanks, Ben.
I love this show. Thank you, Melanie.
This is Melanie Benson, your host. Thanks so much for listening in today. If you want to catch up on any of the show notes and circle back on any of the resources we shared in today's show, head on over to the show page at amplifyyoursuccesspodcast.com. And remember, you amplify your results faster when you're in a community of other people who are moving and shaking. Join us at amplifyyoursuccesscommunity.com. One last thing. When you've gained insight from today's episode, help us share that and inspire other people by heading over to iTunes, subscribing, and give it a review. iTunes absolutely loves seeing these reviews pop up, and it actually helps boost my show's visibility. So I would be super grateful for your reviews. And as always, I love seeing your shares of these episodes on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Come find me over there. Tag me in your shares. I'll give you some social media love right back. So see you next week for another inspiring episode of Amplify Your Success Podcast.